Hey guys, it's me, Kevin, and today I'm doing the AFL Tipping for round 8. To start off the week, we head to the MCG on Friday night, Hawthorn versus Sydney. Sydney, well, they can't even win at their home ground. They've only won 1 out of 4 matches at their home ground. And yes, they've won all 3 away from home, but I mean, if they can't win on their home ground, how are they supposed to defeat a top 4 side at the moment at the MCG? I'm referring to Hawthorn here. Hawthorn in the top 4, so I expect them to win. Also, they should take advantage of that game because that's the only time they'll be able to play in the Friday night slot. On Saturday afternoon at Spotless Stadium, here's a very controversial one. I've never changed my tip before after making a video, but I may do it this time. Luke Shuey, well, him being absent from a hamstring injury that'll weaken West Coast's midfield, GWS have got an extensive injury list. But I'm going to be saying this now. If Nick Natanui, because Nick Natanui is going to the tribunal, because essentially what happened in the Port Adelaide West Coast match, what happened is Nick Natanui laid a dangerous, although I don't think it was, dangerous tackle on a Port Adelaide player. And he got a 1-match suspension, but the club challenged it, and Nick Daniel is going to be in tribunal tomorrow. Now, we haven't actually gotten the results because obviously the tribunal, that case has been delayed because of the club lawyer not being able to make it to Melbourne on time. If Nick Natanui gets a suspension revoked, I'll be tipping West Coast. If it gets upheld, I'm more than likely, I may not, but I'm more than likely to tip GWS. I'll announce it in next week's video who I tipped with the proof. So yeah, that's a bit on that. I'll try and get through the rest now. Saturday afternoon, Carlton versus Essendon at the MCG. I'll be tipping Essendon. Carlton still haven't even won. Essendon, yeah, they're not playing well either, but it seems to be the third quarter where they fall short. So if they could actually play well in the third quarter, I think they'll defeat Carlton. I can't see Carlton winning. Not for a while, anyway. On a Saturday twilight at the Gabba, Gold Coast versus Melbourne, which is where I think Gold Coast should have played those home games when they were away from Metricon. Anyway, so Gold Coast versus Melbourne. I'm tipping Melbourne. Gold Coast, they've only won 3 games. All of them to teams that bottom 6 sides from last year. Not all of them, but I mean, their 3 wins were teams that were in the bottom 6. Melbourne, well, they've won their last 2 games pretty convincingly, so I'm going to be tipping Melbourne. Also on a Saturday twilight, the only time where we have 2 Saturday twilights this year, at Adelaide Oval, the Adelaide Showdown, Port Adelaide versus Adelaide. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to be tipping Adelaide. Port Adelaide, they're very inconsistent at the moment. Adelaide, well, they just won last week, and they've won they've won the last 3 weeks, and I mean, they've only lost 2 games, and they're both on Friday night matches, so saying that they have won a Friday night. So I think it'll be Adelaide. And besides, they've stayed in Adelaide. This is their 3rd week in Adelaide without having to fly, and it'll go on next week as well. So they've stayed 4 consecutive weeks in Adelaide. Saturday night at Etihad Stadium, Western Bulldogs versus Brisbane. I really wanted to tip Brisbane here. Really wanted to, because Brisbane, well, they had a good performance against Collingwood last week. But then I thought about it. It's at Etihad Stadium. And the Bulldogs, well, they've won their last 2 matches in a row. Brisbane still haven't won yet, even though they don't deserve to be winless at the moment. But the Bulldogs, I think, they came off a tight win last week, but I don't think they'll be tired because they don't have to fly like Brisbane does. So yeah, I'll be tipping the Western Bulldogs, and it's at Etihad. Also on a Saturday night at Optus Stadium, Fremantle versus St Kilda. 77-point loss to Richmond. Yeah, alright, that's Richmond at the MCG. I mean, no one's going to beat Richmond at the MCG this whole year, I think. I mean, to be honest, I already think that Richmond, from now, unless they have a significant downfall, I think from here, Richmond's won the premiership. I know it's a tough call. But anyway. St Kilda, well, they've only won one match, and that was back in round 1. Also, they drew. But Fremantle, well, they haven't lost to a visitor at Optus Stadium. No, they lost to West Coast. No, West Coast is a co-tenant. So yeah, Fremantle haven't lost to a team aside West Coast at Optus Stadium, so I'll be tipping Fremantle. On a Sunday afternoon at Etihad Stadium, North Melbourne versus Richmond. Okay, it's at Etihad, but still, I can't see Richmond losing in Melbourne. Okay, fine, especially at the MCG, but even Etihad, I think Richmond will be able to win. I can't see. The only way Richmond will lose right now is if they lose in another state, like how they lost to Adelaide back in round 2. So I'm tipping Richmond. On a Sunday afternoon, Collingwood versus Geelong. I'm tipping Geelong. Collingwood, well, they had a tight match last week. Geelong had a pretty easy win. Also, Collingwood just had to fly. And Geelong, well, they're just a high-ranked team in my opinion. Collingwood, I mean, they almost lost to a team that's winless at the moment. So I'm tipping Geelong. So to recap my tips, I'm tipping Hawthorn, Essendon, Melbourne, Adelaide, Western Bulldogs, Fremantle, Richmond, and Geelong. And what about GWS West Coast? Well, if Nick Nainui's suspension is revoked, I'm definitely tipping West Coast. If Nick Nainui's suspension is upheld, I'll have a think about it, and in the next video, I'll show you who I tipped and whether I got it right or wrong. So if you like this video, please subscribe, like, and comment. Make a good comment. If you want to ask me a question, feel free to ask, because I'll answer it. And anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.